To everyone else, his wife was a saint, a pillar of the community. But he was living a lie for years. He smiled next to her at fundraisers and held her hand at parties. He played the part of the perfect husband. But what their friends didn't see was what happened when the lights went out. They didn't see the nights. And the nights belonged to someone else entirely. When they first met, it felt like a movie. She was beautiful, funny, and incredibly charming. She volunteered, organized parties, and remembered everyone's birthday. His friends told him he was the luckiest guy alive, and he believed them. They had the perfect wedding, the perfect house, the perfect life. Even when they went to therapy, she made it sound like they were being proactive. Even the strongest castles need their foundations checked, she'd tell their friends, who would nod, amazed at her wisdom. In therapy, she was a master. She talked about their shared goals and disconnects so convincingly that even he would get confused. He'd sit there, watching her perform, and think maybe he was a crazy one. Maybe this was just what marriage was. From the outside, their life was perfect. There was nothing to escape from, and he was the perfect, supportive husband. It started so small, he thought he was imagining it. A little comment here, a little joke there. "Oh, you know Mark," she'd say with a laugh. "He'd forget his own head if it wasn't screwed on." Everyone laughed. He laughed too, but every time, it felt like a cold stone settling in his stomach. Then came the nights. After a party where she was the center of attention, the front door would click shut and a switch would flip. Her smile would just vanish. The warmth in her eyes turned to ice. Anything could set her off. How he loaded the dishwasher, a phone call from his brother, a random comment he'd made hours earlier. These weren't arguments. Arguments are a two-way street. These were trials. He'd stand there while she cross-examined him, twisting his words, replaying conversations from weeks ago that she edited just enough to make him the villain. She was an expert at making him feel like he was losing his mind. "You're too sensitive," was her favorite line. She started checking his phone, his texts, his calls, all while saying she was just caring. He couldn't sleep. He'd lie awake for hours, his heart pounding, without knowing why. He thought it was stress from work. He thought he was failing as a husband. He thought it was normal, that this was just what men put up with. He felt completely alone, even though they were always surrounded by people who absolutely adored her. In their third year of marriage, the angel started disappearing completely. The control tightened. She took over their finances, claiming she was just better with numbers. Soon, he had to ask her for money for gas or lunch. His own salary, direct deposited into their joint account, became her money. His friend began to disappear. She never told him he couldn't see them. It was much sneakier than that. If he had plans, she'd suddenly have a panic attack that only he could fix. Or she'd start a massive fight right before he was supposed to leave, until he was so exhausted he'd cancel. Then she'd hug him and say, "I'm sorry. I just need you so much." She was isolating him and getting him to do it for her. He became a ghost in his own house, constantly walking on eggshells. He even rehearsed conversations in his head just to avoid saying the wrong thing. At a dinner with his boss, she playfully told a story about a mistake he'd made at an old job, something he'd shared with her in private. She framed it as a funny quirk, but the message was clear. "I know all your secrets, and I'm not afraid to use them." He sat there, sweating, forcing a smile. If he said nothing, he felt weak. If he pushed back, he feared she'd flip the script and make him the abuser. The world loved her. Who would believe him? The breaking point wasn't a huge fight. It was a quiet click, the sound of a book opening. She was asleep. He was downstairs, cleaning the kitchen again, hoping it would be good enough. On the counter, under a pile of mail, he saw it, a small, leather-bound journal. He knew he shouldn't open it, but his gut, the part of him that was drowning, took over. This wasn't a diary. It was a ledger, a playbook. His hands shook as he read. The pages were filled with cold, calculated strategies on how to manage his behavior. His deepest insecurities and fears were listed, with notes on how to use them against him. One entry read, "Mark is feeling confident about the Henderson project. Need to introduce doubt. Mention how Michael from his office is more qualified. Do it publicly for maximum effect." Another read, He is spending too much time with his family. Plan. Feign illness during the next family dinner. Reinforce guilt by telling him he is the only one who can take care of me. Page after page, it was all there. Every confusing argument, every sleepless night, every moment of self-doubt. It wasn't random. It wasn't him being too sensitive. It was a campaign. She wasn't an angel with a temper. She was a predator. The woman upstairs wasn't just difficult. She had been actively, maliciously abusive. It was coercive control. He wasn't going crazy. He was being driven crazy. He looked at their smiling wedding photo, and all he could see was a lie. He had been married to a complete stranger, and he knew he had to get out. He left that night with the journal and his wallet and just drove. The following weeks blurred together. Lawyers, explanations, confused phone calls from friends. Half of them didn't believe him. But Sarah is so sweet, they said. The other half finally recognized a man they had watched slowly disappear. The experience changed him. It shattered his confidence, intensified his anxiety, and made him question everything. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days, he still felt the phantom weight of her control. But now, there was also freedom. The freedom to wake up to quiet mornings without fear. The freedom to call a friend. The freedom to simply exist as himself. He learned that abuse isn't always a fist. Sometimes it's a quiet voice that twists reality. It isn't always shouting. Sometimes it's a deafening silence. He once thought he was the only one. He learned he wasn't. According to the CDC, about 1 in 3 men in the U.S. have experienced contact sexual violence, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Experience is often ignored because of stereotypes. This story isn't about revenge. It's about survival. And it's a warning. Trust your gut. Believe your reality. Even when someone is trying to rewrite it for you, the most dangerous people don't always arrive with thunder and lightning. Sometimes they come disguised as angels. If this story feels familiar, or if you know someone living in this kind of quiet desperation, share it. If you have your own story, or simply want to show support, like this video and subscribe to the channel. You're not alone, and you don't have to suffer in silence.